So we've added our button, added the ability to create a like, and we see our like count updated in real time. But now that this user has liked a given track, we want to disable the ability to like it in the future. So the question is, how do we keep track, or at least check, the entire set of likes for a given user? Well, if we head to our Apollo DevTools and we look at our Documentation Explorer, in particular for the me query, if we look at its return type of user type, you'll see that at the end we have this like set array. So this gives us direct access to all of the tracks that a given user's liked, and to access it, we'll write out me, grab the subfield set like, and if we look at this like type, we can get information about the track that was liked on this track field. So if we add track, if we look at track type, we can grab the ID of the track that was liked. In this case, it looks like the ID of that liked track was 7. So to disable a given track's like button, we want to grab the current user's like set, go through that array, and see if on that track subfield there's an ID value that matches the track ID of any one of our tracks in our list. So once again, getting information about our current user entails using our user context, rather consuming our user context that we created within our root component. So first, let's import user context from // root. We'll bring in the use context hook, and then we'll consume user context and get back our current user. Then to figure out whether we should disable a given tracks button, we'll head down to our icon button, add the disabled prop, and connect it to a function which we'll call handle disable liked track. And here we don't want to pass a reference to this function. Instead, we just want to immediately execute it. So whenever each track loads, each track is displayed, this handle disable liked track function is executed, and we either provide the value true or false to this disabled prop. So let's create our handle disable liked track function. It's not going to accept any arguments. We're just going to need to take the like set from the current user, so we can take current user.likeset, and we can put it in a variable which will give the more transparent name of liked tracks. Then we want to figure out if the given track is liked. So let's create a variable called isTrackLiked. So to put a Boolean value in this variable, we'll take the liked tracks array, we will iterate over it with the findIndexArray method, in fact, a better name for this variable, instead of like tracks, is user likes. And this is because if we iterate over user likes, every array element is a piece of like data. Remember that we want to compare the track ID on the track subfield of our user likes. Let's take a look at Apollo DevTools once again. We want to iterate over every piece of like data that's associated with a given user, but we want to go into this track property to see if the ID of the track that was liked is the same as any track ID in our track list component. So as we're iterating over user likes with findIndex, we can destructure each like element to get access to the track data, and then we can see if a given track ID is equal to our track ID prop. And if findIndex can find that value, if that value exists, it's going to give the appropriate index within the array. If it can't find it, it's going to return -1. So since we want isTrack_like to be a Boolean, we can convert it to a Boolean by saying greater than -1. So now it'll return true if that track was found, and false if it couldn't find it. And then from this function we can just return isTrack_liked. Now finally, keep in mind, whenever we create a like, whenever a user likes a given track, we're not only updating that particular track. After revisiting our me query, note that we're also updating this like set array. So to make sure that we're always dealing with the latest data within like set after a like has been created, we can use refresh queries on our create like mutation so that when a given track is liked, we refetch our user data. So let's head to root. We're executing our me query, where we wrote our me query, and we'll export it. So now within like track, we can import it, just like we did user context, and then provide it as our one query to refetch. So let's save like track and root. And when we revisit our app, and it looks like we're getting an error, cannot read property findIndex of undefined. Now this is because even though we've been working with our like set array within Apollo DevTools, we haven't actually asked for it when we executed our me query. So the current user that we're passing through or consuming within like track doesn't have like set on it. So naturally findIndex is going to return a type error because we don't have that data. So let's head to root and update our me query. Let's add our like set field, and on it we want to add track within it, and then within track we'll ask for the ID. Now let's save root, and hopefully our error will be gone, and it looks like it is. If we close our console, we see that the first track that we liked, its like button is now disabled, so that's good. And then when we like this second track, we should see immediately its like count update increase by 1, and then immediately afterwards the button should be disabled. So let's like it, and just like we expected, the count was incremented, the button was disabled, and if we refresh, both buttons are disabled, so we won't be able to like either one twice in the future.